Okay, I'm going to get started this evening by welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung You. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. We just restarted this group learning program last week, where what I do is I help students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. And here at the beginning of this particular program, I'm doing a 3-part series helping students to be able to understand the Eightfold Path. This is a core central teaching of the Buddha that's going to help you to be able to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. So over the next 4 or 5 weeks or so, I'm going to be teaching some different classes, but then eventually I'm going to start with chapter 1 of this book, Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment, and we're going to go chapter by chapter. But for right now, we're just going to be starting with getting some real details on the path to enlightenment. Today, I'm going to be teaching the wisdom section of the path to enlightenment, the Eightfold Path. This is where you learn about right view and right intention. We're going to be starting with meditation, where I'm going to be chanting on the way in. This is kind of helping to ease the mind into meditation. Then I'm going to be guiding you in the meditation. Then there'll be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating, and then we'll come out of that with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class. So feel free to take whatever position you're comfortable with. I'm going to get started with the chanting. You're welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Mahakeva Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Iti Piso Mahakeva Arahang Sama Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธเอมหะเกวาโพตังมหาเกวันนังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตเอมหะเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนเอมหะเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสเอมะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตวามนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you'd like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to you guys. Welcome to everyone online as well. Nice to see everyone in class today. So last week, I restarted the group learning program from the very beginning on Sunday, and I kind of helped students to really get started with kind of an introduction and a welcome to the program, teaching what are the teachings of the Buddha, what the teachings of the Buddha are not. We did some other things, kind of introducing you to the program and so forth and so on. On Wednesday, I actually taught the ins and outs of meditation. And if you haven't studied in this class yet on Wednesday, it's actually recorded. You'll find it on our YouTube channel. You'll find it on our podcast. You'll find it on our Facebook group, all these different places you can access the particular teaching that I did on Wednesday, because you'd like to build up your meditation practice. That's part of this journey to enlightenment. And that's why on Wednesday, I taught that particular class. But today what I'm doing is I'm going to start a 3-part series where I'm going to teach the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the path to enlightenment. This is the teaching that you're going to need to know inside and out, backwards and forwards. This is where everything else that the Buddha taught integrates into it. So what I'm doing is this 3-part series, starting with the wisdom section, where over the next 3 weekends, I'm going to be helping you to understand this path to enlightenment. And then, of course, there's a whole bunch more of this program, which is 7 months long. But here at the very beginning of the program, you're going to be able to learn the Eightfold Path. You're not going to be able to just learn it once and then just immediately implement it into your life. You're going to need to learn it multiple times. So in this program, I've actually set it up so that you actually have 2 different times that you're actually learning the Eightfold Path. And then even beyond that, you're going to need to learn it some more. So these teachings, it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. But today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be diving into this wisdom section where I'm going to be teaching right view and right intention. This is really helpful for you because this forms the foundation of all the teachings of the Buddha. Right view is the very first teaching that the Buddha would teach all of his students when they're first getting started. In 4 simple statements, you're going to be able to understand the problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And the way that these teachings work is you would like to learn, investigate, and examine the teachings. You would like to reflect on them to verify if they're true or they're false. And then you would like to integrate them into your life through a practice where you're making decisions through those teachings. And that's what's going to lead to the results and the benefits. So I'm going to help you guys to get started with understanding right view through the teachings of the Buddha. When I teach, I use the original words of the Buddha. And for some people, when they hear me say that, it's like, well, yeah, of course. Like, what else would you do? If you were going to share the teachings of the Buddha, what else would you do other than use the original words of the Buddha? Well, you'd be surprised to know that there's over 500 million people in the world that consider themselves to be Buddhist, and a very few number of those people actually study with the original words of the Buddha. I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one temple that actually shares the original words of the Buddha. So if you do the math on that, that's less than 1%. So whenever you're studying the teachings, you would like to make sure that you're studying with the original words of the Buddha. That's what's going to help you to be able to see what did he teach and what he didn't teach. So all the books, all the resources, everything that I share is all based in his original words. And then even when I'm teaching in classes, I share the original words of the Buddha. So I'm going to share with you the original words of the Buddha on this Eightfold Path, starting with right view. Right view here, this is the words of the Buddha. He says, in what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view. So what the Buddha is doing here in this important teaching is he's pointing to another teaching, and he's saying that is right view over there, because the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that everything else plugs into it. One of the ways you might think about this is that there are 8 individual dials that if you tweak these dials, you get a better and better performing mind. Just like if you had a speaker system and you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you would tweak these 8 dials. The Eightfold Path is very similar to that. So everything the Buddha taught is integrated into this Eightfold Path in some way. So he's not going to repeat the teaching of right view here in the Eightfold Path because he already taught it somewhere else. So here he's just pointing to it and he's saying that's right view over there. What he's pointing to is a teaching called the Four Noble Truths. Underneath of this line, I have the top section of the Four Noble Truths, so you can build confidence based on what you're seeing in the Eightfold Path and based on what you're seeing in the Four Noble Truths, that yes, what the Buddha is teaching as part of the right view is the Four Noble Truths. You can see this connection, the wisdom of discontentedness, the noble truth of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the noble truth of the cause of discontentedness, right? So he's connecting these two for you to be able to see that. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths because there's more below this that you're not actually seeing that the Buddha actually taught. So in order to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to understand the 3 universal truths. We call these the 3 universal truths and the Four Noble Truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true. But in order for you to get the benefit, you're going to need to know that they're true. And that's why you can't believe anything that it is that I'm sharing with you. I'm going to show you how to learn, investigate, and examine these teachings. I'm going to show you how to reflect on them to verify if they're true. And then I'm going to show you how to practice them. Starting with this first teaching of the universal truth of impermanence. The Buddha's teachings are explaining to you the way the world is. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows rules and commandments, the world's going to become a better place. He's teaching you the way the world is. And the way the world is that it's impermanent. These are building blocks that are going to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths by the time we get there. So here the Buddha is explaining to you that the world is impermanent. Things are constantly changing. And anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, it is all impermanent. These are called conditioned objects. They arise, they change, and then they fade away. This is going to be a fundamental building block by the time we get to the Four Noble Truths for you to understand that. So there's something called conditioned objects. This is everything in the material world, anything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind. It is all impermanent. It is constantly changing. It arises, it changes, and it fades away. And then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. They are unconditioned. They are permanent. There's two things that are unconditioned: the natural laws of existence that the Buddha taught. Now, the memory in the books and what people are talking about in terms of the teachings, that has changed. But the natural laws themselves from 2,500 years ago, they haven't changed. That's why the Buddha's teachings are timeless. They apply during his lifetime and they apply now too. So you'll be able to see that they are timeless and that they're unconditioned, that they don't change. And then the same thing is with the enlightened mental state, that once you get to enlightenment, it is an unconditioned mental state, that mental qualities, they don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. So these are the two things that are unconditioned: the natural laws of existence and the enlightened mental state. But everything else in the world that you can either see, hear, smell, taste, that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, these are all conditioned objects. They arise, they change, and they fade away. They are temporary. They are impermanent. Okay, so that's a little bit of the intellectual learning on this. It took me all of about 3 minutes to explain it. But you don't believe that because you're not interested in belief. You need to get to wisdom where you know the truth. So now you move this into reflection. You start reflecting on this to try to determine, is it true or is it false? And what I suggest you do is you take things that you're familiar with and you can kind of ask yourself questions of whether it's permanent or impermanent. So for example, take this human body. You're very familiar with this human body. Ask yourself, is it permanent, meaning it's exactly the same your entire life, or is this body impermanent, meaning that it's constantly changing? So what would you say? Is this body permanent or is it impermanent? It's impermanent, right? Ever since the egg and the sperm came together, it's been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get bigger, we get smaller, right? When we were first born, we didn't have teeth and then they grew in. That's change. And then those teeth fell out. I'm going to sneeze in a minute. Here it comes. Oh, it's gone now. Okay. Those teeth grew in, then they fell out. That's change, right? And then new teeth came in, and then we got cavities. We get pimples, wrinkles, moles, we get gray hairs, right? All of this stuff is change, right? So the physical body is constantly changing. What about your relationships? Would you say that you've had exactly the same people in your life, your entire life, meaning your relationships are permanent? Or have people been coming and going in and out of your life throughout your life, meaning your relationships are impermanent? So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? Vibhav says impermanent. What about you guys? Impermanent? Yeah, they're constantly changing, right? Well, what about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. It's going up and down and up and down. Some people's bank account goes up, 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 up. Some people's goes down, 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 right? That's impermanence. That's change. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's sunny, it's raining, it's sleeting, it's snowing, tornadoes, hurricanes. This is all impermanence. So we could go on and on and on and on like this. And if this is what you need to do, you should. You should go around the world and try to see if you can find something that's permanent, right? Look at the wood floor on the temple floor, right? You can see some planks are longer, some are shorter, some are one color, some are different color, right? You're walking down the street, you see a crack in the sidewalk, that's impermanence. You look at the tree and you see green leaves in the tree and brown leaves on the ground. This is impermanence. Impermanence is all around you. Things are constantly changing. And this is going to become very important when we get to the Four Noble Truths, to be able to understand things are constantly changing. So if you can't see this truth and know it with 100% certainty, you're going to need to go out into the world and you're going to need to verify this for yourself so you can deeply soak into the mind that everything around you is constantly changing. The second universal truth is called discontentedness. Now, if you study teachings of the Buddha in other places, they might have referred to this as suffering. I don't use that word, and I'll explain to you why in a moment. But first, I'm going to explain to you what the Buddha was teaching on this important topic, and then I'll circle back and explain to you why I don't use suffering. So in the original teachings of the Buddha, in the Pali language, he uses the word dukkha. This word dukkha translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. He's explaining to you the unenlightened mind and what an individual experiences in the unenlightened state. That the mind is shaken up, it's unsteady, it's uncalm. That the unenlightened mind experiences three feelings: a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, and a feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant. Pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, or euphoria. Those are pleasant feelings, very pleasant to experience. And they're what we call conditioned feelings, that they're based on some condition. Then there's painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. Very painful to experience this. And they're also conditioned feelings. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example. That it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. It's kind of uncomfortable, right? Or say you are on public transportation and somebody you don't know comes and sits really, really close to you, and your body is touching their body. You might say that it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant, right? The mind is uncomfortable or dissatisfied in that situation. That's what the Buddha is talking about with neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So in this situation, the unenlightened mind is experiencing these feelings where it's bouncing all over the place, right? I mean, you have periods of calm and peacefulness here and there, but it's only a matter of time before you start experiencing these feelings, that your mind's happy and excited, but then it's sad and frustrated and irritated, but then you're lonely and bored, then you're embarrassed and disappointed, and then you're frustrated. Again, you've got peace and things like that here and there and calm here and there, but it's only a matter of time before you become irritated about something. Your mind's going up and down throughout life. This is called discontentedness, that the mind is experiencing this discontent feelings where it's unstable, it's unsteady, it's shaken up. And as long as your mind's experiencing that, then you can't make wise decisions when your mind is all shaken up. So this is referred to as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Essentially, what an unenlightened being is experiencing is they might wake up in the morning and they see that it's sunny outside and they get so happy and excited about that. That's a conditioned pleasant feeling, that based on a condition that the sun is present, you're now experience happiness. But the problem with this is that when you go take a shower and then you come out and you're thinking that you're going to go hiking, but now it's raining, now you're frustrated or agitated or annoyed because you were so happy with the sun. Your happiness is based on the sun, and the sun is not permanent. So when it changes to rain, your mind ends up experiencing the anger or frustration. The enlightened being doesn't experience that. When they wake up in the morning, they're already happy. They're experiencing unconditioned happiness, that there doesn't need to be any condition met in order to experience the happiness that's in the mind. So an enlightened being, they were happy before they ever saw it was sunny. And now when they go take a shower and they come out, they see it's raining. It's like, well, okay, it's raining. Well, I guess I'm not going outside today. I'll just stay in and read a book, or I'll go to the mall, or I'll invite my friends over and we can cook. The mind can maintain its peace and its joy because it's not based on the sun. So in the unenlightened state, the mind's going up and down and up and down. This is called discontentedness, where the mind is unstable, unsteady, it's shaken up. Now, some people refer to this as suffering. If you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard that being used. I don't use the word suffering because it only explains the painful feelings. When you're sad or angry or feeling guilt or shame or fear, you'd probably say you were suffering. But if your boss walked into your office and said they're going to give you a raise because you're doing an outstanding job, they're going to give you $100,000 more per year, and you got really happy and excited about that, would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? Or let's just say that person you don't know comes and sits really, really close to you on the bus, and now your body is touching their body. Would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? So that word suffering only explains 33% of what the Buddha was teaching on this important topic, which means you're missing 66% of his teachings. How could you ever get to the ultimate goal of the teacher's teachings if you're missing 66% of his teachings? So I encourage you not to use that word, even though many other people use it. Instead, think of it as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because that explains the full range and spectrum of emotions and feelings that are experienced in the unenlightened state. Now, as I mentioned, I'm using the word discontent, discontented, and discontentedness because you need to be able to see that these pleasant feelings are actually just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. What I mean by this is the conditioned pleasant feelings, that if you can only be happy when certain conditions are met, that's a problem. It's kind of like if my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if I have this much money in my bank account, if I have this kind of house and this kind of car, the weather is like this, then I'll be happy, right? So your happiness is actually shrinking because it's conditional. What the Buddha is teaching you to do is get to unconditioned happiness, where there doesn't need to be any condition met in order to experience that happiness. But as long as you allow your mind to keep experiencing conditional happiness, you'll never actually get to the permanent happiness, because the conditional happiness is temporary. Therefore, it's unsatisfying because it's only temporary. What you can actually train your mind to do is get to the permanent happiness. But as long as you're experiencing this conditional happiness, that means the painful feelings are waiting for you right around the corner. So for example, if you get so happy and excited with this brand new job that you just got, well, when they lay you off, and now you don't have a job, or they fire you, or the company goes out of business, you'll be angry, you'll be sad, you'll be frustrated. Because if you allow your mind to get the conditioned pleasant feelings, and you can only be happy when that condition is met, when the condition changes, and it will change because it's impermanent, now your mind's going to go to the painful feelings. So you need to be able to see these conditional pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem. This is the temporary happiness. What you're looking to do is get to permanent happiness, permanent joy, where the mind can be bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted at all times. That's what we call unconditioned happiness. So the word discontentedness explains this really well. Have you ever been so excited that you tripped and fell, or you dropped something and broke it? If you've ever experienced that, then you understand that these pleasant feelings shake up the mind. So you would like to get to the point where you're experiencing unconditioned happiness, where your mind can just be happy all the time. There doesn't need to be any condition met. Okay, so this is the second universal truth. And now you can independently verify this, because if you are in the unenlightened state, which you know if your mind is in the unenlightened state, ask yourself, is this what you experience? Because the Buddha is explaining to you the unenlightened mind. Ask yourself, is there any feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories? Because if there is, when we get to the question period, let me know and we can talk about it. Okay, so that's how you independently verify that, yes, the Buddha is explaining what the unenlightened mind is experiencing here, because you've been in life long enough and you know that you have these three feelings. But if you think that that's not true, let me know and we'll talk about it. Now there's the third universal truth. This is actually the solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. So I'm going to explain to you the problem first, and then I'm going to circle back and explain to you this universal truth of non-self. That's what it's called. Okay, so in the mind, the Buddha discovered these 10 individual pollutions. They're referred to as the fetters. The reason why is because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were someone they were trying to keep confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter around your ankle. This is like a shackle and a chain and a ball, and it kept you confined to that particular area. Where today we put those types of people in jail cells or prison cells. Where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would attach a fetter to your ankle, and this would keep you confined to that area. So when he discovered these pollutions in the mind, he calls them fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. So what you're doing on this path is you're uprooting these fetters out of the mind. You're purifying the mind of the causes and conditions that are keeping it in the unenlightened state. So the very first fetter is called personal existence view. What this is where the mind has the confusion or the misunderstanding that this body or this mind is you and who you are as a person. So the mind will cling to a certain self-image or a certain self-identity of who you think you are as a person. And now you want to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only be happy if you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. And if you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived, then the mind experiences some other painful feeling like anger, frustration, embarrassment, or something like this. So for example, here's how this personal existence view works, this pollution that's in the mind. Let's just say you're going into a social situation and you spill something on your clothing. If you've been embarrassed in that situation, that's your personal existence view. You're clinging to this body, this self-image, thinking that this is who you are as a person, wanting others to perceive you in a certain way, and you can only be happy if they're perceiving you that way. So when you have clean clothes, maybe you think that you're intelligent or organized or smart, and now when you're around people, you feel great because you have nice clean clothes. But when you spill spaghetti sauce or ice cream all over your clothing, and now you're in a social situation, maybe you feel stupid or foolish, or maybe you feel disorganized, and now you think people are perceiving you that way, and you feel embarrassed. That's the embarrassed feeling because it's clinging to this body, wanting others to perceive you in a certain way. And you can only be happy if you're being perceived that way. Or maybe you looked in the mirror and you saw a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole or maybe a gray hair, and you were shaken up by that. That's your personal existence view, clinging to this body, wanting others to perceive you in a certain way. So this is what the mind does in the unenlightened state. Maybe you stood in front of the closet and you were thinking, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look? Maybe you put on a certain set of clothes and you look in the mirror and you're like, no, I can't go outside looking like that. And then you put on another set of clothes and you're like, no, that's not it. And you put on a third set and you're like, okay, now I feel comfortable to go outside. This is your personal existence view. Only feeling comfortable to go outside when you think you're going to be perceived the way you want to be perceived. I used to do this as a child. When I was growing up in my teenage years, before I would go to school, I would get out the gel and the mousse and I would run it through my hair, and I would try to get every little hair in exactly the right spot before I would go outside. And sometimes I would do this for so long I'd miss the school bus on the way to school. So maybe you had some of these kinds of experiences. This is your personal existence view, clinging to the body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you can only feel comfortable when you're being perceived that way. Then there's something called self-identity. Your self-identity is how you view yourself and who you are as a person. This could be based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. Any number of things you could cling to is who you think you are as a person. And now, when you have that intact, you feel comfortable. But when it's not intact, you'll feel frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So for example, say you came together in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, or a husband or a wife, and you think, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife. And now when you guys are together, you feel a certain amount of comfort in that. But when you guys break up, you might have felt uncomfortable in that situation because your mind didn't identify as I am single. It identified with I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend. And you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. Your mind thought that was the way to solve this uncomfortableness that you were experiencing, is to hurry up and get back in another relationship so you can reassume that identity. Or maybe you have in your mind that I am American, or I am Indian, or I am a Brit, or I am an Aussie, or any of this I am around your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. And let's just say now you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, they say all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. And you overhear this conversation and your mind thinks, I am American. And now they're talking about me. And you get all these pleasant feelings, right? Well, it's only a matter of time before 2 tables over that somebody's going to say something degrading and disparaging about who you think you are as a person and what you're holding on to as an identity in your mind. And now you're frustrated or angry or irritated. Now you're ready to fight because they're talking about me. Well, this is just what the mind does. It's like a delusion that the mind has. It's confusion that the mind has, that it thinks that this is who you are as a person. But what the Buddha is teaching you as part of the universal truth of non-self, this isn't you. He says there is no self. There's no you there. That as long as you cling to this body, this self-image, as long as you cling to the mind, this self-identity, you can experience permanent peace and permanent joy because all of this is changing. And if you cling to it and want it to be permanent, then when all that changes, you're going to be frustrated, agitated, or annoyed. And it will change, right? So think about if you had a job and you thought, I am a police officer, right? And now you're doing this job for like 10, 15, 20 years, right? And now you really feel great. I am a police officer. But then you retire or you get injured or you get fired or laid off or something like this. And now let's just say you're driving a taxi, but your mind is identifying with I am a police officer. And now you're disgruntled, you're frustrated because that identity of I am a police officer is in your mind, but you're driving a taxi, right? And now you're disgruntled and frustrated. So if you're going to get to peace and joy, you need to do what's called realizing non-self, where you get to a point where you realize that this body nor this mind is who you are as a person, that you don't cling to the self-identity or the self-image, wanting it to be permanent. So you need to realize non-self. Sometimes people get this personal existence view so strong that they come to places like Thailand. They go to their home country, they go to their parents, they say, Mom, Dad, I don't know who I am anymore. I need to go to Thailand and find myself. I need to go find my true self, right? And now your parents are like, all right, honey, whatever you need to do, go have a good time. Go find yourself. So now somebody will come to Thailand. They'll spend 6 months or a year here doing different things, right? And then eventually they'll get to a point where they go back home and they're like, Mom, Dad, I found myself. I know who I am again. Yay, right? And they're so happy. Well, they haven't really found themselves. They might have found new hobbies, new activities, new friends, new job, but they haven't found themselves because the self doesn't exist. But the mind keeps looking for this. It keeps trying to grab onto something. And if you grab onto a job or friends or family or activities and you think that this is who you are, when all that stuff changes, you'll feel lost and confused. You'll feel like less of a person. So if you identify with I am a police officer and now you're not doing that job anymore, you'll feel like less of a person. You'll feel unwhole, right? So you can get to a point where you realize that this body nor this mind is who you are as a person, that there is no self. Okay? So this is a little bit of an introduction to this, but there's more for you to learn here. By the time we get to chapter 16, I'm going to be going into this in a lot more detail. Here, I'm just introducing it for students. And oftentimes people understand it when I first start talking about it. Other times they don't. And if you're in either of those categories, it's okay if you don't understand it right now, because you've spent a lot of time in your life accumulating the idea of a self. In fact, wherever you grew up, they probably have a flag. They probably have a national anthem. They probably have sports teams that you cheer for, thinking that that's who you are, so you need to cheer for those teams, right? So we've spent a lot of time accumulating the idea of who we think we are as a person. So to have somebody tell you that there is no self, it's almost like the mind doesn't compute. It's like, what are you talking about? That there is no self. This body is me, this mind is me, and the mind wants to hold on to it. But just understand there's more for you to learn here. But you can independently verify, even if you don't understand this right now, that there is no self. Here's how you do it. Think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, when you were early adulthood, and now. Think about yourself, how you viewed your personality and your character. Has it been exactly the same through all those 4 phases of your life, or has it been changing? It's been changing, right? You view yourself differently through all those 4 phases. Here's another way. Say your arm was cut off at the shoulder and you only have one hand and one arm. Are you less of a person? You only have one hand and one arm. Are you less of a person? What do you think? Vipav's shaking his head no. What do you guys think? Okay, so sometimes people answer it that way. That's fine, however you answered it. Oftentimes people say, no, I'm not less of a person, right? So if you can see that you're not less of a person when you have less body, you can see intellectually that you understand that this body is not you. Whereas if you thought deeply that this body is you, you would say there's less body, so therefore there's less me. So yes, I am less of a person. But very rarely does somebody actually answer it that way. Most frequently people say, no, I'm not less of a person, right? I have less use of a hand and arm, but I'm not less of a person. And that's where you can see that your mind intellectually understands that this body is not you. Because otherwise, people would answer that question differently. They would say, yes, I'm less of a person. Well, in the heat of the moment, even though you intellectually might understand that this body is not you, the personal existence view kicks in. That's where when somebody says to you, wow, you're so handsome, you're so beautiful, that shirt really brings out the colors of your eyes. You're like, they're talking about me, right? You get so happy and so excited about that, right? That's the conditioned pleasant feelings. But then it's only a matter of time before somebody says, where did you get that haircut? Are you going outside looking like that? And now you're frustrated or angry, right? So your mind can understand intellectually that this body is not you. But then deep inside the mind, it gets confused when you're in a situation and somebody says something either agreeable or disagreeable about this body. And now the mind experiences some type of feeling or emotion as it relates to that. Here's a third way that you can independently verify that there is no self. Point to yourself. Where are you? Nobody's pointing. Maybe you already realized non-self. So usually where people do is they usually point here, or sometimes people point to the head. I don't know about you guys online. I don't see too many of your cameras. So I don't know where you're pointing, but oftentimes people point to the chest or they point to the head. They say, I am here, right? Well, if you're pointing to your chest and you're saying, I am here, look at what you're pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt. Ask yourself, is that who you are? That shirt that you're wearing? Like if we took off our shirt and we held it up and pointed to it, is that who you are as a person? That shirt that you're wearing? That's not you. So we throw away the shirt. Where are you? And someone might point again. I am here. And then you need to see what you're pointing to. You're pointing to skin. Ask yourself, is that who you are? That skin that you've got. If we took off the skin and we held it up and we pointed to it, is that who you are? That skin? That's not you. So we throw away the skin. Where are you? And somebody might point again. And now we've got bones, we've got muscle tissue, we've got organs and fluid. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you. But what the mind's personal existence view is doing is it's holding on and clinging to this as who you think you are as a person. And that's where it starts forming emotions and feelings based on those things. So ultimately, you can need to get to a point where you realize non-self. And there's certain teachings that I'm going to share with you when we get to chapter 16 that is going to help you understand how to strip this away out of the mind and train the mind to understand that this body is not you and this mind is not you. So right now, if somebody said, all Americans, by the way, I grew up in the USA. If somebody said, all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. Okay, I understand that's your opinion. Okay, I understand. I wouldn't get excited about that. But then also if somebody said, all Americans are blah, 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 blah. Okay, I understand, but I'm not American, right? My mind doesn't identify that way. Or if somebody says, all Buddhist teachers are loving and kind and warm and gentle. Okay, I understand. Someone might say, all Buddhist teachers are horrible. They're blah, 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 right? They're talking really bad. Okay, doesn't affect my mind because my mind doesn't identify with I am a Buddhist teacher. So you can actually fulfill a certain role while not allowing your mind to adopt the identity of who you think you are as a person. Because then that's where your mind's going to form feelings and emotions based on that. So you need to get to the point where you realize non-self. Okay, so we're going to talk about this a lot more when we get to chapter 16. So do you guys have any questions on these three universal truths? Remember, here at the temple, you have microphones there, here as well. And then for those of you guys online, you can put your question into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any questions that you like. So it looks like we have a question here on Zoom. This is Sergio. He says, how do you separate the self from life purpose? Some people link their career or an activity with their life purpose. Well, Sergio, this is very opposite of probably the way you think right now. But that's a very good thing because if your mind is in the unenlightened state, you're going to need to learn something different than what you currently understand. There is no life purpose. As soon as you allow your mind to grab on to a life purpose, that's the mind trying to form a personal existence view. And now if you grab on to that, your mind will be unwilling to let it go and move on to the next thing. So for example, when I first started out of college, I was doing IT work and I enjoyed it at the beginning. And if I thought that was my life purpose, 7.5 years later, when I decided to stop doing IT and I started to open my own businesses, I wouldn't have been willing to do that, right? And then when I moved into business for myself and I was doing that, if I would have seen myself as my life purpose and who I am as a person is to be an entrepreneur, well, then when I started being interested to share the teachings of the Buddha, I would have been unwilling to move to that. So this life purpose that people are trying to form as who they think they are in the world, it's actually coupled with this personal existence view, and it's getting in the way of people living a fulfilling and satisfying and sustaining life. Because now, whenever you form the idea of what your life purpose is, when you get to a point where maybe you don't like that thing anymore, the mind is unwilling to move to something different. And now you just kind of stay stuck in that same situation, being unwilling to move to something else that could maybe be more fulfilling and more satisfying for you. So you need to get to the point where you eliminate that whole idea of I got to find my purpose in the world. So this self is something that the mind has in the unenlightened state, but it's not true reality. It's the mind being confused. And oftentimes the mind will adopt this idea of a life purpose of who you think you are as a person. But you would like to just get rid of all of that stuff and just work towards your goals, objectives, or interests. And we'll talk about this more as this program continues. But that should help you there, Sergio. Okay. Just have a bunch of hellos on YouTube. Okay, so now we're going to move to the next part. There's one more little building block that I need to share with you before I teach you the Four Noble Truths. You need to be able to understand the definition of these words: craving, desire, attachment, wants and expectations, clinging, holding, grasping. What this is the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection, wanting to seek external satisfaction from external things. It's like the mind is chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. It's like an unquenchable thirst that the mind thinks if I can just get that thing, everything will be perfect in my life. It's almost like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind will chase it and chase it and chase it and chase it. Right? This is what the mind's doing in the unenlightened state. The mind thinks that there's something external that is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind pulls towards this thing. It's not the object itself that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way that the mind is pulling towards it. So if you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you were like, oh, brand new pair of shoes. Oh my gosh, if I can just get those on my feet. Oh, this would be so perfect. Or maybe it was a piece of jewelry or a video game or a mobile phone or something like this. Your mind was just longing, yearning for something, just wanting something so badly and thinking if I can just get that thing, everything will be perfect. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The craving, the longing, yearning. It's not the object. It's not the shoes. It's not the jewelry that is the craving. It's the way the mind's longing, yearning for the object. That's what the craving is. Okay, so now I can teach you the Four Noble Truths. In these four simple statements, you're going to understand the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So the problem that everyone is experiencing in the unenlightened state is that they will experience discontentedness. Those discontent feelings, those conditioned feelings, where the mind is happy and excited, but then it's sad and frustrated or agitated, but then it's lonely and bored and feeling miserable and all these other things. The mind's going up and down and up and down and up and down. It's only a matter of time before the mind becomes discontent about something. That's the problem that unenlightened beings are experiencing. Because when your mind is discontent, you can't make wise decisions. So this is the problem. The cause of that problem is in the second noble truth. The second noble truth explains that discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. Okay, I'm going to say that a few times, and then I'm going to give you some examples so you can really see this. You can penetrate into this and have a real breakthrough today where you can understand once and for all why your mind's experiencing all this anger, sadness, frustration, and other feelings. Those discontent feelings, it's being caused by craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. The mind wants things to be permanent, but yet everything in the world around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing. So here's some examples. Think back to a boyfriend or girlfriend that you first got together with. When you guys first got together, you were probably so happy and so excited. This was a new person in your life. They're showing you attention. They're calling you and checking in on you. Maybe they're inviting you to dinner, to the movies. Maybe you're going to the park, having great conversations. You're walking around. Maybe you're having intimate contact together, right? Having sex. This is the mind having so much pleasure because it's getting what it wants and what it expects. But then over time, the relationship deteriorates and now you break up and you're frustrated, you're angry, you're irritated or annoyed. This is the mind holding on and craving permanence. It's not love that's causing that. It's the mind holding on and craving permanence. The mind wants this person in your life. It's longing, yearning, but the mind's not getting what it wants. In the unenlightened state, you can only be happy when you get what you want and what you expect. But when your mind's not getting what you want, your mind's longing, yearning for it, but you don't have it. This is why when they were in your life, you were happy to a certain degree. But then when you guys broke up, you weren't getting what you wanted. So now the mind is frustrated or agitated or annoyed. The same thing's happening like if you've had someone close to you that has died, said grandma or grandpa. Maybe when they were alive, you were getting what you want. You were so happy and excited. But then when they died, your mind wasn't getting what it wants and what it expects, which is permanence. But grandma and grandpa aren't permanent. Mom and dad aren't permanent. Brothers and sisters, all these people in your life, nobody in your life is permanent. Everything's constantly changing. But the mind doesn't understand that in the unenlightened state. It's holding on and craving permanence. So if you grieved or you had sorrow when someone close to you died, you're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just that the mind is holding on and craving permanence. You might have seen this if you went to a wedding. People might have been crying or upset at the wedding. Again, that's not love. That's the mind holding on. Because if you see your friend or family member going off into the world to start a new relationship, that's wonderful. Hey, they got a new relationship. That's outstanding, right? But no, mom and dad are crying. Brothers and sisters are crying because they're holding on. And it's like, that's my brother. That's my sister, right? You're upset. The person's upset. Or say if you could think back to when you went away to school, maybe when your parents dropped you off at school, or if you've ever seen this happen, right? They might have been crying. They might have been upset. Again, it's not love that's doing this. Because if you love your child, you would like to see them be well. You have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. And going off to school is one of the best things that could happen for them. They get an education. But what's happening here is the mind's holding on and it's craving permanence. And now this being is going out into the world to do things on its own. And the mind is holding on and craving permanence. And the mind's not getting what it wants and what it expects. I'm going to give you some other examples here. And I think you'll be able to see this more clearly because sometimes people have trouble when I talk about it with relationships. Think if you bought a brand new car. You had a certain car that you've been saving up for and you've saved all this money, maybe for 10 years. It's your dream car. You just can't wait to buy this car. And you go down to the dealership and you give them all the money and they give you the shiny new keys and they say, here's your new car. And you get in your car and you drive it off the parking lot and you feel so great. Everyone's looking at you like, wow, look at her. She's so successful. Wow, look at him. He's so successful. And you're just so proud driving your car. And then you park it at a store and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. Oh my gosh, you might be so angry or frustrated. It's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing the anger and frustration is the mind's craving permanence. That the mind craves this car to be permanently beautiful when it's not possible for this car to be permanently beautiful, right? We're not talking about what's wise or unwise because obviously when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is going to deteriorate. It's only a matter of time. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. If you crave permanence, when this car starts to change, you won't like that. That's one of the ways to say this. We could say that the mind craves permanence, or we could say that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change in the unenlightened state. That's why if you look at your life, when things have been changing in your life, that's the times that you were having the most struggles and the most difficulties. Look at your life when you were changing living locations, when you were changing jobs or occupations, when your relationships were changing. That's the times that you struggled the most in your life because the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't like change. It's holding on and craving permanence. Right? So you need to be able to see this for yourself because if you think that it's other people that are causing you to be angry, that's not true. And what you'll end up doing is you'll start pushing people away. You might have already started to do this. When the mind believes that it's something external that's causing these feelings, you'll think that it's maybe your mom or dad or brothers or sisters or other people like this that are causing your painful feelings, and you'll end up pushing people out of your life. You might have already done that, where you pushed away a person or a situation out of your life. This is called aversion. Or you might have been bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal. Or you might start putting expectations on people, trying to pressure them to do things your way. But you can see that this doesn't work because when you push people out of your life, they aren't the real cause of your problem. Because if they were, when you push them out of your life, you'd be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. But you can see that's not true. And when you're bitter and harsh and hostile to people, that doesn't solve the problem either. It just damages your relationships. And putting expectations on people and pressuring them, that doesn't work because they're not going to feel comfortable and they might actually choose to leave out of your life. So this is the mind being unskillful. Because of its lack of wisdom, it firmly believes that the problem is external. It thinks somebody is causing you to be angry and frustrated. But nobody can insert a feeling into your mind. It's physically impossible for someone to insert a feeling into your mind. So you need to be able to see this for yourself. Remember, these teachings aren't based in belief. Don't believe me. What I'd like to do is invite you to take a moment to look at your own life. Look at a recent situation where you've been angry or sad or frustrated. It might have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at this situation with fresh eyes. What was it that you wanted? What did you expect? What were you longing, yearning for? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy. You would have been excited. But because you didn't get what you wanted or what you expected, there was some other type of feeling. Maybe anger or frustration came into the mind. If you can see this for yourself, you can have a real breakthrough, because then you can see with 100% clarity that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Now, I'm sure you've been in knockdown, drag-out fights before, where you've been adamantly trying to convince somebody that they are the ones who are causing you to be angry. And you may be trying to force them or pressure them to do things your way. But it's not that person that's causing your anger. And that doesn't mean that they're not doing something unwise, because they could be doing something unwise, but that's not what's causing your anger or frustration. It's the mind craving permanence. I want everybody to do it this way. And if they do it this way, you're happy. But if they do it any of these other ways, your mind's frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So you need to be able to see this for yourself so you can have a breakthrough to being able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because once you understand that it's your own mind causing these feelings, that's a beautiful thing. Because then you understand you can fix it. If it's everybody else that's causing these feelings, you can't fix that. Because there's 8 billion people in the world. You can't convince 8 billion people to do things your way. It's physically impossible. But when you come to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, then it's like, wow, that means I can fix it. So you need to take some time to be able to look at this and see this for yourself. And if you have questions, when we get to the question period, I will help you. I've had plenty of people over the years need help with understanding whether it was their own mind that was truly causing these feelings or not. I'll give you one example so you can understand what I'm talking about. I had a student contact me several years ago, and they said, David, I need to talk to you. And I said, okay, what's going on? They said, I know that you teach that it's my own mind that's causing these feelings, but I'm sure it's my wife. And I said, okay, what's going on? They said, well, I went to work the other day, and my house looked beautiful. Everything was in a nice spot. It looked so beautiful. It looked wonderful. And when I went to work, I was gone for 8 or 10 hours. And when I came home, she had a craft project all over the house. The house was a mess. And when I walked in, I immediately got frustrated and angry. How did my mind cause this? I wasn't even there. She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be angry and frustrated? Nope, she didn't cause you to be angry or frustrated. It was your own mind. You were craving permanence. When you went to work, your house looked a certain way. And when you were coming home, you expected the house to look exactly the same way. The only thing you experienced here is change. That's all that's happened. When it goes from sun to rain, all you experience is change. But the mind doesn't like that. When your bank account balance goes from here to here, all that is change. And the world is full of change. Everything's constantly changing around you. So as long as the mind craves permanence, while you live in an impermanent world, you're going to constantly be frustrated and agitated and annoyed because all this stuff around you is constantly changing, right? So you need to be able to see this for yourself. And this is just one example. But the beauty in this is that once you see that it's your own mind causing these feelings, now you understand there's a solution. You can actually fix it. Because here, if you understand that the cause is craving, desire, attachment, That's the mind holding on and craving permanence. Well, the third noble truth is explaining to you that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you can train the mind to let go, you can actually be peaceful and joyful. It's a permanent mental state. But as long as you're holding on, you can't be peaceful, you can't be joyful. So you can independently verify this too, right? Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend. When you guys broke up, you were angry, you were frustrated, you were lonely or bored, or you were missing that person. But at some point, your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. You were like, you know what? If he wants to date somebody else, so be it. And you let go and you moved on with your life. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. Or you were like, you know what? If she wants to live in a different part of the world than me, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. But your mind doesn't know how to let go. But that's what's going to take in order to be able to get to enlightenment, where your mind's peaceful and joyful. And that's where the fourth noble truth comes in. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete, perfect plan that's going to train your mind to let go. Because the mind doesn't know how to let go in the unenlightened state. This is forming right view. To have the right view that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. That's the right view. If you have wrong view, where you think it's other people that are causing these feelings, you'll go around the world blaming everybody else. And you'll never actually solve this. You'll never fix it. So the very first step on the Eightfold Path is to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, because then you can fix it. That's right view. Right? So what you would like to do to practice right view is to start looking inward. Instead of blaming external circumstances for what you're experiencing, start looking inward, right? So say you're checking in at an airport and you think your flight's leaving in about an hour, and you're up there at the ticket counter and you're checking in your bags, and the person behind the ticket counter says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You can't check in right now. Your flight's not leaving for 3 more hours." And now you start noticing the anger starting to arise. That's your craving for permanence. You want every single airplane to take off on time. So instead of sitting in the waiting area in the lounge being angry and frustrated, instead start looking inward. Because what the mind's going to want to do is it's going to want to blame the airport, or blame the taxi driver, or blame somebody who, did something or another. You're going to want to blame everybody else. But the fact is that it's the mind craving permanence. You want every airplane to take off on time, especially the ones you're on. The other people's planes, they can be late. You don't mind about those, but it's your airplanes. You want them to take off on time. But the fact is that you live in an impermanent world. It's only a matter of time, if you travel enough, that you're going to meet with the delay. You're going to experience weather issues, maintenance issues with the plane. Maybe the crew doesn't even show up. Right? This is all impermanence. So you're going to need to get comfortable with looking inward, being reflective and introspective, that you can sit there in the waiting area and be like, man, I am so frustrated that plane is not on time. What is going on here? Instead of blaming other people, start looking inward. Boy, I'm on my way to Thailand. And boy, am I craving that mango and sticky rice. I can't wait to get to that mango and sticky rice. Or maybe it's the massages or the elephants or something like that. And you're just like, oh man, I can't wait to get to that. That's what's causing this. Your mind's craving, you're longing, yearning to be able to get to those things. That's what's causing the anger and frustration, because you don't have what you want. Your mind is longing, yearning for this plane to take off on time. That's what's causing the anger and frustration. So you need to practice right view, where you start looking inward to start seeing that it's your own mind causing these feelings. So I'm going to pause here and see if anybody has any questions. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put that into the comment section, or you guys have the microphones here. Let me know if you guys have any questions on these Four Noble Truths, because it's utterly important that you penetrate into this and you be able to see that it's your own mind causing these feelings. Because if you don't, you'll keep pushing people away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or you'll put expectations on people. And that's no way to live life. You're just going to experience difficulties and struggles over and over and over again. So do you guys have any questions on this? Looks like we have a question coming in here on YouTube. So let me look here. All right. We have a question coming in. It says, I expect people around me to show the same interest in me that I show in them. I'm often disappointed because this doesn't happen, which leads to dissatisfaction. How can I adopt right view? So that's exactly what's happening, is the mind is having this expectation that people do exactly the same thing as you. That's the mind's ego thinking that I'm right, I'm doing things the right way, and everybody should do things my way. That's the craving for permanence. You need to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing that and understand impermanence, that everybody's going to do things differently in the world, and they're not going to do things the same way as you. And that's okay. That's what makes this world wonderful, is that we're all different. We're not all the same. That's the impermanent nature of the world. So you're going to need to learn the entire Eightfold Path to be able to practice it in order to be able to eliminate this craving, desire, attachment from the mind. But it starts with right view and being able to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. That's what right view is about, is helping you to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. The solution to fix it is up here in all of this other steps that I'm going to be teaching you over time. So if you keep continuing to learn with me, I'll be able to teach you all of this over the next 2 weekends. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So now I'm going to move on to right intention. This one doesn't take very long to teach you at all. The first one takes a little bit of time because you really need to take your time to understand it. But right intention is very straightforward. Here's the words of the Buddha on right intention. He says, in what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. So he's talking about 3 things here. And sometimes people translate this as right thinking or right thought, because that's what you need to build. You need to build the thinking or the thoughts or the intentions of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. What renunciation is being willing to let go, because the mind is holding on to its false ideas, its false beliefs, its false opinions, and it's going to hold on to these things. And as long as you hold on to those things, then you're not going to be able to get to enlightenment. Because if your mind is experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and all these other things, there's certain lack of wisdom that your mind has. And as long as you have these false beliefs, false opinions, and false views in your mind, and you're unwilling to let them go, then that means you're not going to ever be able to bring in the wisdom that you need to be able to fully transform the mind. So with the Buddhist teachings, you're not bringing in new beliefs in order to get rid of your old beliefs. That's not what you're doing. You're bringing in wisdom. And when you bring in wisdom and you see that it conflicts with things that you've believed your entire life, you need to be willing to renunciate those things. One of the first false beliefs that you need to let go of is the belief that other people are causing you to be angry or causing you to be frustrated. If you keep holding on to that, you'll never actually experience enlightenment. So you need to be able to renunciate your false opinions, false views, false beliefs, and your unwholesomeness. There's a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct that every unenlightened being is having, where maybe you're being bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And you're going to need to be willing to renunciate that. Let that go. Then there's the intention of non-ill will. Non-ill will is goodwill. When you have the intention of goodwill towards all beings, this is loving kindness, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards others. This is going to promote a healthy mental state where now your speech, your actions, and your livelihood can emanate from these intentions of goodwill towards all beings. Then you're going to need the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm. Because anytime you put out harm, harm is going to come back to you. Now, what you just heard me share is that it's your own mind that's causing these discontent feelings. That's true about other people too. If there's people that are blaming you for their anger, their frustration, or any other discontent feelings, it's not coming from you. It's coming from their own mind. You can't cause someone to be angry or frustrated, but you can cause them harm. Causing someone harm is to cause harm to their physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation. If you cause harm to someone's physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation, harm is going to come back to you. So you need to create the intention or the thinking or the thought where you're disinterested in causing harm. Because how can you ever get to peace and joy if you keep experiencing harm coming back to you? As long as you keep putting out harm, harm is going to keep coming back to you. And how can you get to peace and joy that way? So these are the three intentions that you need to cultivate, or the thinking or the thought: renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. So now what I'm going to do is summarize this for you, and then I'm going to open up to any questions that you guys might have on anything that I've been sharing. So right view is the Four Noble Truths, where you're accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. You need to accept responsibility and accountability for what's going on within your own mind, because wrong view is to blame other people. So now and forever, I advise you to start looking inward. Whenever you see discontent feelings, start looking inward. Because if you keep blaming people externally, you're going to keep pushing them away. You're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them and put expectations on them. Because it's only a matter of time before you encounter people who do things differently than you. It's only a matter of time before you experience that. So you need to practice right view, where you start looking inward for what are your cravings, what are your desires, what is the mind longing, yearning for? Because there's something your mind's not getting in this situation where you're angry or frustrated. Then right intention is to practice the intention or the thinking or the thought of renunciation, where you're willing to let go of your false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions and views, bringing in this wisdom. And you need to be able to be willing to let go of your unwholesomeness. There's a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct that you're involved in, and you need to be willing to improve that by letting it go. Then you need to have the intention of non-ill will, or cultivating loving kindness, this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And then you need the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to someone's physical body, their material possessions, or their reputation. Because anytime you put out harm, it's going to come back to you. This is a natural law. So any questions that you guys have here? Looks like we have some questions coming in on YouTube. So let's see here. I have some questions here. Okay. Sorry, that's the ones from before. Okay, there's another question here. How much time does it take with meditation for craving to decrease? Thank you. You can't really put a time marker on it. In order to be able to get to enlightenment, it's not a couple of weeks, couple of months, or even a couple of years. It'll take multiple years for you to be able to get to enlightenment. Everybody comes to the path to enlightenment with different levels of pollution in their mind, and different people have different levels of dedication and determination. So this is the impermanent nature of the world. But the mind's looking for that answer, right? Like, what is the amount of time that it takes for craving? As if there's just one answer. But in reality, the world is impermanent. Some people take this long, some people take that long, some people take this long. It's different, it's impermanent. So there isn't just one set answer there. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to end class by thanking you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. What I'm going to be doing is next week, we're going to be going into the next part of the Eightfold Path. I'm going to be teaching the moral conduct section. And this isn't rules or commandments that the Buddha is teaching you. Instead, he's teaching you how to clean up your moral conduct so that you're interacting with people in a wise way. Because one of the things you learn with this first section of the Eightfold Path is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So the last thing you're interested in doing is being bitter and harsh and hostile to people, because that's all coming from your own mind. It's just damaging your life and your relationships. So the Buddha is going to teach you how to speak wisely, how to interact in the world wisely through this moral conduct, so that as you're putting out good, wholesome moral conduct, that what you're experiencing coming back to you can be an improvement, where you're experiencing wholesome results coming back to you. So thank you all for joining, and perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.